Greetings, magical mavens! This video is the 8th and final video in our year-long grimoire journey through the Wheel of the Year. If you've been along for the ride, thank you so much for watching. And if you're new, welcome. Just like in all 7 of the other videos in the series, this video will take you on a magical journey into the themes of the Sabbat and offer you some of my most powerful grimoire prompts to help you experience more fulfillment in your life this season and in the year ahead. But there's also a fun theme for the footage used in this video. This video invites you to come along and decorate my home with me for fall, and it's a collaboration with Amy over at Magical Crafting. She's also created a lovely video for you over on her channel where she takes you step by step through a magical fall decor project using wood and acrylic paint. The link to her video will be in the description of this video, and I'll also include a link to it at the end of my video. So after watching my video, I invite you to check out hers and subscribe to her channel if you haven't already. She does gorgeous witchy crafts and spell tutorials step by step. So without further ado, let's explore the magic of November's Eve. The Wheel of the Year has turned once more, conjuring memories up from before. The mother a circle, the father a line, the journey a spiral as these two combine. As bodies in heaven turn and revolve, so do our spirits as we do evolve. Each year we go around the Wheel of the Year, we move closer to love and farther from fear. And as the cosmic clock does turn, along our own journeys we live and we learn. Hello, shadows, my old friends. You've crept up on me once again. The shorter days and longer nights cast long shadows in the evening light. At this time, both witches and muggles turn to cozy things and snuggles, as well as all the spooky things that autumn inevitably brings. The darkest time is all but here, a powerful time on the Wheel of the Year. And as the veil begins to thin, the cold and darkness settle in. Now's the time for divination, for costumes, sweets, and celebration. A time of shadow work as well, to conjure up a clearing spell. Out with the old to make way for the new, blessing our home with a fall-scented brew. Time to put our gardens to bed, and compost all that now is dead. This season we bravely face our fears, and bid farewell to the passing year. The theme of death isn't always tragic, for letting go is the strongest magic. So at this time of letting go, I invite you to let your magic show. May your shadow time be charmed and fun, for there's a little witch in everyone. November's Eve, aka Samhain, Halloween, or All Hallows' Eve, is the third and final harvest festival on the Wheel of the Year, celebrated around November 1st. The midpoint between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice is a time when the days are being consumed by longer, colder nights. The late autumn time, when the very last of the harvest was brought in for winter, was always riddled with themes of death, darkness, and mystery. The Celtic pagans of the distant past called it Samhain, or summer's end. It was a time to communicate with the ancestors and muse about what lay on the other side of the veil of death. In Christian times, the church adapted this theme into All Hallows' Eve, a time to acknowledge the souls of those who had passed away. The modern adaptation is, of course, Halloween, a pop culture holiday in which we toy with the ideas of what humans are most afraid of. Mexico celebrates the Day of the Dead, which emphasizes not the fear factor, but the honoring of those loved ones who have passed out of this world and into the next. My 3 favorite themes to focus on this time of year are death, ancestors, and darkness. In modern society, we go to great lengths to overlook the concept of death, so it may come as a surprise that our ancestors dealt very closely with death and amassed their most prominent celebrations and spiritual beliefs around this subject. In secular culture, we avoid thinking about the end of our lives on Earth, but almost every ancient spiritual teaching focused on the transition from this world into the next. At this time of the year, when it's said that the veil to the other world is thin, it's the perfect time to actually ponder the mystery of death rather than ignoring it. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of death this season. How have I experienced the concept of death in my life, be that literal or the metaphorical death of past versions of myself or paradigms of my life? Is there anything in my life right now that I feel is ready to die to create space for new experiences in the coming year? I've experienced a lot of the theme of death in the past few years. It definitely feels like I've gone through an ego death of some kind, where I've watched parts of myself die to clear the way for new experiences. Some of these have been very slow and painful deaths, while others have felt like a breath of fresh air after a period of stagnation. Along with the end of the nearly 2 decades-long dynasty of my old family of cats is the overarching theme of the death of my old identity from my teens and 20s. While it's been somewhat of a gradual change over the course of the past few years, this year in particular seems to stand out as the true end of something and the start of a new era in my life. Sometimes in people's lives, there's an abrupt death of a version of themselves when something suddenly forces them to pivot. But other times, much like with my cats who lived long and mostly very healthy lives, we have plenty of warning that that era is gradually coming to an end. And it's up to us to use our remaining time with it to make peace with it and prepare for the change. I knew by the time I was 24 that I was slowly becoming more 30. And by the time I was 27, I was actually looking forward to my 30s in a way. Since I had discovered magic and self-development in my early 20s, I was observing how my life seemed to improve as I got older, including my health and beauty, contrary to the toxic societal conditioning that I had fed into growing up, which tells us that we get worse as we get older, and that turning 30 is something for 20-year-olds to dread. I learned about the power of the number 33 and was kind of excited to see how magical and powerful I would be by age 33. And as a total side note, I also have since discovered that my life purpose numerology is a series of repeating threes, so perhaps I intuitively knew this would be an important year for me. And alas, having been 33 years old for the past 8 months now, I can definitely attest to it being a very powerful year for me. But nothing could have prepared me for what I've encountered on the road to get here. As a magical mentor, I try to emphasize in my teachings that we really should be careful what we wish for, and in some cases, how we wish for it. My ex-boyfriend actually summed this up perfectly in one of his stand-up comedy bits. He would tell this annoying joke about how his girlfriend is a witch and how she manifested him, and now she has to deal with the consequences of being with a guy like him. And what was most annoying about this self-deprecating humor was that it was true. Some would say that I had manifested a toxic relationship because I'd been going about the manifestation process quote-unquote wrong. But I see it differently. I actually believe that we manifest exactly what we need at any given time. For some reason, I was stubbornly convinced that I needed to be with that guy, and I stayed with him for nearly 3 years of toxicity, which was out of character for my normal relationship style, even though I couldn't quite put my finger on why I stayed for so long. Looking back at the whole situation, I can now see exactly how none of it was an accident or a coincidence. Not only did I learn a ton about self-development and manifestation and how they work, but I also learned exactly what I didn't want in a relationship, which made it abundantly clear exactly what I did want in a relationship, which in turn led to me becoming a vibrational match to my soulmate just a year after breaking up with that guy. I do believe in free will, and that if I had gone about manifesting a partner differently back then, I could have manifested a road where I learned the lessons I needed to learn in a much easier and more gentle way. But I believe I chose the hard road because I consciously or unconsciously wanted a crash course in the subjects of life school that were triggered by that relationship. I like to believe that myself and my current partner experienced our previous relationships exactly when we did as an intensive prerequisite to finding each other. We've had similar experiences and learned similar lessons about relationships, and it makes us stronger both individually and together, and it maximizes the wisdom that we're both able to share with the people who we help. Who knows what could have happened in an alternate reality, but I have a feeling my partner and I were able to clear away old karma and break generational curses involving toxic relationships in the few years before meeting each other, so that we could come together at age 30 with the self-love, wisdom, and vision we needed to truly be a power couple. And maybe it would have taken longer if we hadn't manifested the hard, fast road. This is just one example of a time when I've experienced this phenomenon of be careful what you wish for and how you wish for it. And this segues into what still needs to die for me this season. This November's Eve season, I'm letting go of the pattern of always choosing the hard and fast lessons. I do believe there is a time and place for the hard and fast crash course style lessons. Maybe it's my Aries moon, but I'm now stepping into a new paradigm where I get to learn my lessons the easy way. And furthermore, that just because things get to come easier to me, it doesn't automatically mean that it has to come slower or less efficiently. That was a sort of rule of reality that I believed and was subscribing to, that I'm now seeing the death of. As magical practitioners, we can't control what life throws at us, but we do get to use our free will to choose our focus, our path, and our methods. In the past, I was using a lot more firepower and overthinking my way through life via the air element, and now I'm rebalancing the elements so that I can be more grounded in earth and more nourished by water. Of course, all of the elements are still equally important at all times, and working with tools like seasons, astrology, and divination can help us stay balanced along the way. One way to get clarity at any moment is to do what I like to call my elemental alchemy tarot reading. In this spread, I pull one card for each of the elements to show me a snapshot of how I'm currently manifesting my reality. And then the spirit element card comes in to show me the path my soul truly wants to take, informing how I'll balance or rebalance the other four elements going forward. You're welcome to try this type of reading yourself, or I invite you to come along and have one done by me. Sometimes getting a reading done by a loving, wise companion who is also detached from the intimate details of the situation is exactly what we need to see more expansive perspectives on potential solutions so we can get out of our own way. If you feel like you could use a little bit of help in getting out of your own way, then I invite you to learn more by checking out the link in the description below. Along with the theme of death, the mind naturally wanders to the memory of those who have passed on. In ancient times and in indigenous cultures today, there's a great emphasis on remembering the ancestors. During the late fall season, we can take this time to recall those who came before us and reflect on our physical and spiritual lineage. Whether we were close to them in life or not, everyone alive today only exists because of the ancestors who survived and passed their genes and wisdom down to each of us. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of ancestors this season. What comes to mind when I think of the term ancestors? My familial ancestors who I know and can name? The thousands of biological ancestors in my line who I cannot name? Or even the concept of collective ancestors, any ancient cultures that I feel intuitively connected with. How do I or can I honor any or all ancestors this season or in the year ahead? Ancestors are an interesting subject for me because on the one hand, I could say it's not a big or prominent part of my practice. While on the other hand, I could also say that human history is something that I find very fascinating. I think part of the reason why ancestor work isn't a huge part of my practice is because I was raised geographically and somewhat socially far away from my grandparents, and one of my parents really never talked much about their side of the family at all. But in addition to that, being an Aquarius personality type, I've always kind of been more focused on the humanitarian possibilities of the future, as opposed to the oppression and segregation and toxic patterns of the past. I've always identified more as a world citizen than any specific cultural identity. I see humans as humans, part of one big family. And I can just as easily see how people who are not related to me are my chosen family, as I can distance myself from blood relatives that don't vibe with me if need be. To me, people are people, and energy is just as relevant as blood. I've also found it hard to really identify with any one ancient or modern culture because I have a very blended background. I identify mainly as African American because that's what my parents and grandparents identified as, but I've never fully felt like I fit into that box the way some others do, and I was always just as interested in the customs of other cultures as well. My mom has gotten really into ancestry in the past few years, and as it turns out, just as we had always suspected and been told by the ancestors we do know, we are also of European and Native American origin as well. So I could justify my interest in various forms of paganism by identifying as African, European, and Native American. But how does that explain my love for Eastern philosophy? This is where the concept of collective ancestors comes into play for me. It's my worldview that everything and everyone in the universe is connected and comes from the same source. And the concept of reincarnation definitely seems to ring true for me. So wouldn't it be fair to assume that it's quite possible that we've all lived many lives in many cultures with many different identities over the millennia? Even biologically speaking, we're learning that cultures we've come to think of as separate were actually blended in the past, and still are in various ways. Like how if you dig deep enough into Celtic history and mythology, you discover that their culture overlaps with Indian culture, as just one example of this. Especially now, in a world where there's so much divisiveness going on, even as there's more and more integration of every culture through migration and the internet, I'm feeling more and more like the path forward is to see the potential for unity rather than focusing too much on where each supposedly separate group came from. I feel it's important to acknowledge, honor, respect, and perhaps most importantly, learn from each and every culture. But I'm far more interested in the concept of the common origin of all humanity and the future we're creating together than the nitty-gritty details of everything that's happened in between or what's caused us to feel like we're separate. I feel it's more important than ever to focus on what we all have in common, our inherent humanness, rather than what sets us apart. One way I like to do this in a simple, magical way is to research and honor the spiritual wisdom of various world cultures. As an eclectic pantheist pagan, I don't worship the deities of any particular culture. However, I believe in the universality of archetypes and the creative power of feeding into and resonating with their energies. I like to keep representations of the archetypes from all over the world on my altar, and I open myself up for communication with them in my daily ritual. I often find fall to be the perfect season for expanding my knowledge on human history and mythology, and I enjoy playing documentaries in the background while I'm creating artwork for my shop, as just a simple, tangible way to be in tune with the collective energy of human consciousness while also integrating it in a way that I feel progresses us forward. In November, the shortening of the daylight hours becomes impossible to ignore. We're becoming acutely aware that the darkest part of the year is closing in on us. It's at this time that we intuitively begin to reflect on the darker aspects of our human experience as well. Shadow work is the practice of facing the parts of ourselves that we have not yet healthily integrated into our holistic view of self. Shadow aspects include our fears, guilty pleasures, and the parts of our personality or past that we're not necessarily proud of. We owe it to ourselves to be conscious of these things and find a healthy way to give them a voice in our spiritual practice. Otherwise, they will haunt our steps, preventing us from manifesting our dream life. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of darkness this season. What am I afraid of? Or what are some of my least favorite things about myself, my life, or my past? In what ways can I playfully integrate these fears and frictions into my life and provide a healthy outlet for that dark energy? Lately, I've been addressing the fear of fear itself. Obviously, the theme of fear has been very prominent in the world for the past few years, and I've really had to take a closer look at how it was showing up for me and how I could integrate it in a way that helps me rather than hindering me. Not only have there been things like diseases and economic crises to contend with in the world, but I'm also a Black female witch in America. Just about everything about that could be viewed as triggering to various groups of extremist muggles. But my intention for myself is not to see that as evidence that I'm being shunned, attacked, and destroyed by enemies coming at me from every side, even though there have been violent demonstrations against my kind very close to home. I've had to get real with myself and really ask myself what drives me and what gets to feed off of my attention and what doesn't. In seemingly opposing times like these, we as humans and as magical practitioners have to really put our money where our mouths are, so to speak, when it comes to focusing our energy and attention, since attention is the most powerful currency we have. Time and time again, I return to the simple question, am I being led by love or fear right now? And as always, this powerful question helps guide me to make decisions that are truly in alignment with my soul, my truth, my power, and my values. When we're blinded by fear, which can often be defined by its acronym, false evidence appearing real, we're 100% more likely to run blindly into more of what we think we're running away from. However, when we acknowledge our fears, real or imagined, and allow ourselves to feel and release them with love and positive intention, we're able to clear our energy and then focus more effectively on what it is we actually want to create in their place. I don't believe we're going to collectively manifest more peace and love by focusing our decisions around paradigms of fear and separation, which is interesting to navigate in today's world, especially for someone like me who has very strong air placements in my chart and a tendency to want to think realistically, quote unquote. But what I'm learning along my spiritual journey is that nothing truly expansive or worthwhile ever really comes primarily from thinking about the problem from the same place that got us there in the first place. I'm continuing to challenge myself to see the world and my place in it from a solution-based mindset and a possibility-based mindset. And even more than ever before, I'm approaching this not from a place of sweeping things under the rug, but instead from a place of true awareness and healing. It's not about ignoring the problems as if they don't exist. It's about acknowledging the trauma with compassion for self and others, and choosing to interrupt the pattern of fear-based thinking and decision-making, starting with myself. I'm doing my best to truly embody the age-old saying, be the change you wish to see in the world. And sometimes that looks like simply being gentle with ourselves and still daring to dream outside of the apparent confines of the version of reality that's being presented to us from the outside world. This is what true magic is. The ability, willingness, and courage to see possibility in our own vision, even when what we're seeing in the world around us is the culmination of a past paradigm that we're not identified with deep down. So, what are your favorite things about the November's Eve season? Are you planning to journal on any of the topics from this video? If so, I would love to invite you to join me for a seasonal journaling adventure this fall. Here's how. First, you can just download the printable PDF files of the grimoire pages you saw in this video from the Writing Witch shop. Your download will include all of the November's Eve information discussed in this video, as well as journal prompts and space to write about your relationship with the season. You also get access to 4 different printing options: color and black and white, the black and white version being great for saving on ink and getting to decorate the pages yourself, and full binder sheets or smaller folded booklet templates for junk journaling. You get to print these out as many times as you want for your own personal use. So if you want to do binder pages in color this year for an instant option, you can. And then next year, if you decide you want to get more crafty with your grimoire, you can print out the junk journal template versions. Doing these same journal prompts each year in different journals or as binder refills has helped me and my Writing Witch patrons to uplevel our capacity to experience fulfillment each year. And I want you to get to experience this magic too. Are you also looking to connect with myself and other magical mavens as you embody your most fulfilled version of yourself this year? If so, then I would love to invite you to join us on Patreon. If you choose to join any tier by October 30th, 2022, you'll get access to November's Eve themed grimoire pages. And if you choose to support me at a higher tier, you get additional printables and/or access to my full course on how to manifest your most fulfilling fall season. And in our Patreon community, we're about to start our late autumn seasonal living challenge, where we connect with kindred spirits with discussion prompts. Each season from now on, we'll be holding a challenge for the 5 weeks surrounding the 8 Sabbats of the Wheel of the Year. These challenges are for the Grimoire Goodies tier, the Magical Mavens tier, and the Manifestation Magicians tiers on Patreon. Every Wednesday for 5 weeks per Sabbat season, I'll be posting a prompt to help you maximize your fulfillment by harnessing the themes of the Sabbat. Patrons who post a response to every discussion prompt this season will be entered to win a package of paper craft goodies from my shop. The prompts I'll be posting each week correspond to the prompts included in my printable journaling pages. So if you've purchased the pages from my shop, or if you're in my course, or if you're in a Patreon tier that includes the grimoire pages, I of course also invite you to write longer and more personal responses in your grimoire, and share your biggest takeaways on the challenge posts if you choose to participate. Or you can just post the first thoughts that come to mind on the post just to get your comment in for the challenge, and then take the time to yourself afterwards to do your own private journaling practice. Or just do the prompts and skip the journaling if you don't have time. Even just leaving a short comment on each post will help you focus on what's most important for you this season. And alas, even if you're shy and would prefer not to post on our private patrons-only posts, I still invite you to join in and do the prompts in your own mind or your own journal. Of course, you won't be eligible for prizes if you don't comment, but the personal benefit of reflecting on these prompts is so powerful in any case. It's kind of its own prize. So all you need to do to participate is be aware that the challenge begins on Wednesday, October 19th, 2022, when the first post goes live on Patreon. There will be 1 challenge post per week for 5 weeks leading up to the final post, which will be on November 16th. Challenge prompts will always be posted on Wednesdays around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A winner will be selected randomly out of a witch hat 1 week after the 5th and final prompt is posted on November 23rd. So if you're not already an eligible patron, I invite you to sign up now. I'm so excited to get to know you better as we share our experiences with the seasons and grow as a magical community. I hope to see you there. November's Eve blessings to you, and for more autumn inspiration, I invite you to check out this playlist right here.